Before we get into the Gantt chart functionality, it's worth noting that the Gantt chart is not the default layout. The default layout on the tasks or milestones is the summary table, which means you might see something similar to this table as shown on the screen when first accessing your project or program. To switch to the Gantt layout, simply click on the downward arrow, Layout, and Gantt. Perfect. So now we're ready to begin. Setting your project-specific working days. When a new project is created in Verto, the default working days for tasks and milestones are set to Monday to Friday, excluding British bank holidays. This means you can't add a task or milestone that falls on a weekend. If your project will require weekend working, the working day setting can be amended. You can also add in additional excluded days on top of the bank holidays. We recommend making any changes to the default working day settings on your project or program before you start adding your tasks and milestones. To make changes to the working days, you'll need to be in the scheduling mode. To access the scheduling mode, click on Scheduling in the Gantt view. We're now in the scheduling mode. Click on Actions and Working Days. From here, you can add in additional working days, such as the weekend, and we can also add in an excluded day for this specific project. Click on Add, type in the name of your excluded day, and the date. And then click OK. And OK. So now all that's left to do to save those working days and excluded days to the project is click on the Save, type in Save, and those have now been added against the project, and we can start adding our tasks and milestones. Activating auto-scheduling. When auto-scheduling is switched on, the Gantt will automatically reschedule the start and end dates of any linked tasks or milestones in your plan. Tasks and milestones are linked together using the dependency feature. If you intend to use auto-scheduling, we recommend activating this feature before you start adding your tasks and milestones. It can also be enabled at a later date, but this change is not retrospective, which means that any existing tasks or milestones in your plan will each need to be manually added into the auto-schedule process. You'll find more information on this in the Knowledge Hub articles. Okay, so to activate auto-scheduling, you'll need to be in the scheduling mode. To access the scheduling mode, click on the scheduling button in your Gantt view. Next, navigate to Actions, Auto Schedule. There are two options to pick from, On and On Strict. Let's take a look at each of these in a bit more detail. So, whilst in the scheduling mode, to activate auto scheduling on your Gantt, you're going to want to go to the Actions button, and then we're going to select firstly the On, so auto schedule on. Now, if you've activated auto scheduling after adding tasks and milestones to your plan, which is what we have done here, these tasks and milestones will now display the pin icon next to them over here on the left-hand side. This is signifying that these tasks and milestones have been manually scheduled. So to include these records in the auto schedule process moving forward, against each, you're going to need to go to the downward arrow and select auto schedule. You'll need to repeat this on each of the tasks and milestones that you want to be included in the auto schedule process. Any tasks or milestones that are included in the auto schedule process will now have the new icon against them. So you can see clearly those tasks or milestones that are currently in the manual schedule process and those that have now been included in the auto schedule process. Okay, so once you've done that for all of the tasks and milestones in your plan will then look like what we're seeing on the screen now, with the auto schedule icon displaying on the left-hand side. Moving forward, any tasks or milestones added to the plan once auto scheduling has been activated will automatically display the corresponding icon and will be included in the auto schedule process. Now, as a reminder, dependency lines must be drawn between your tasks and milestones for the auto schedule process to work. Once dependency lines are in place, the start date of the successor or the second task will update according to the end date of the predecessor or the first task. Now, if you're going to use auto scheduling, it's a good idea to enable the Show Slack option on your Gantt. You can do this by clicking on the cog at the top and ticking Show Slack and OK. Now, this is going to give you a better understanding of the movement of your tasks and milestones. So, as a reminder, slack is the amount of time a task can be delayed without impacting any of the other linked tasks or milestones. Verto will automatically calculate the slack for you. So whilst there's slack available on a impacted task or milestone, it will only move that task or milestone. So for example here, if I start to move the dates of this task, we can see here we've still got slack available. So any changes are only impacting this particular task. However, if we exceed that slack, you're now seeing that there are changes happening in the other linked task activities. So this is because that slack has now been used and any date changes on that task will have an impact on the dates of the other linked tasks. So when using auto scheduling, it's incredibly important to have that slack on so that you can see where you have availability to move your tasks and milestones without impacting other linked activities. And once that slack has been used up, then there will inevitably be an impact on linked activities in that group. To switch on auto scheduling strict, whilst in the scheduling mode, you'll want to go to Actions, Auto Schedule, and On Strict. So just like with the normal scheduling, any tasks or milestones that were added to your plan before you switched on auto scheduling are going to have the manual scheduled pin against them, and you'll need to, against each of them, you're going to want to click on the downward arrow and auto schedule. You're going to need to do that for all of those tasks and milestones that you now want to be part of the auto schedule process. Okay, so now all of our tasks and milestones are set up to be included in the auto schedule process. And as mentioned previously, with the normal auto scheduling, it's a good idea to activate the Show Slack so you can see what slack you have between the different tasks and milestones. Now, the key difference between the standard auto schedule and the auto schedule strict is that when using auto schedule strict, tasks will always be rescheduled to the earliest possible date. and any slack will be removed. So, what that means is as we start to draw our dependency lines between our tasks and milestones, you'll see here that the slack is disappearing. So the goal of your auto schedule strict is to get your plan delivered in the quickest possible time. And as we can see here, all the way down, that slack is just being reduced so that we can get to our delivery timescale and our end date as quickly as possible. And there we go. So if you have any lag set up between your dependencies, that will be respected. But as I said, any slack will be completely removed from your plan to get you to your end date in as quick as possible time. Okay, so now we know the difference between auto scheduling on and auto scheduling on strict. I'm going to select on for my plan. And then as we're in the scheduling mode, I just need to click on the save, click yes, and now we're ready to start adding our tasks and milestones to our plan. Adding summary tasks. A summary task is an overarching task that brings together a group of subtasks and displays their combined start dates, end dates, and percentage completes. Summary tasks automatically calculate their own start and end date using the earliest start and the latest end date of all of the subtasks underneath, and their current percentage complete using the overall percentage complete of all of the underlying subtasks. To add a new summary task, click on the downward arrow, Add, Summary. Alternatively, if you would prefer the safety of being in the scheduling mode, where changes aren't written back to the project until the Save button is pressed, click on the Scheduling button and then simply click on Add Summary Task. It's a good idea to add an overarching summary task to track the overall progress of your project. When adding a summary task, you can enter a start and end date as they have been agreed, but once the plan has been fully set up, these dates will naturally feed from all of the tasks and milestones underneath. We'll see that at the end. So for now, let's pop some dates in. And then click OK. So we now have a summary task that represents the entirety of our project, the start date and the end date. When you add a new summary task, automatically a child is created. You can then repurpose this to start creating your plan. It's also a good idea to add some summary tasks to represent the different groups of activities in your project plan. To add a summary task underneath your overarching summary task, you'll want to click on the downward arrow, Add, and click on Summary from here. I'm going to add a summary task that represents the first group of activities in my plan, destination planning. Again, I'm going to give some proposed start and end dates, but these will naturally be calculated once all of the tasks and milestones are set up in my plan. And then click OK. So now, if I click on the Expand button, what we can see is we have our original overarching summary task and the child that has been automatically created, and we can either repurpose or delete. And then we have our sub-summary task, which is our destination planning. And again, that has a child which we can either repurpose or delete. So we would repeat those steps until we have all of our summary tasks in our plan. And then because we're in the scheduling mode, we will need to click on the Save button and save those back into our project. Once you've added all your summary tasks, you'll get a view that looks like this. You can see here I have the overarching summary task that we created, which will represent the start and end date of my project. And then I have 3 separate summary tasks, one around destination planning for my holiday, one around the travel plans, and one around the holiday activities. Each of these summary tasks comes with an automatic child underneath, which can either be deleted if it's not required, or it can be repurposed to be one of those tasks that sit underneath that summary task. Adding tasks and milestones to your Gantt. So there are several ways in which you can add a new task or milestone into your Gantt. Firstly, if you want to add a new independent task or milestone, so one that isn't going to sit underneath an existing summary task or group of tasks and milestones, then you can use the Add Task or Add Milestone buttons at the top. For example, I'll click on the Add Task button here and then type in my title, Research Holiday Deals, and I'll select some dates. So we'll go with the 14th of November to the 21st of November. And then we click OK. And our new task has been added to the bottom of the existing set of tasks and milestones. And we can look at how we might relocate that in a second. The other way we can add tasks or milestones is by adding them to an existing group. So if we wanted to add a new task underneath the destination planning summary task, then what we're going to want to do is click on the downward arrow and then select Add and Task from here. Now, alternatively, we might prefer the safety of being in the scheduling mode where changes aren't written back to the project until the Save button is pressed. So if we want to do that, what we just need to do is click on the scheduling button at the top there. And now we're in the scheduling mode and the same options are available to us. We can use the buttons at the top there, or we can click on the downward arrow, Add, and we can select task or milestone from here. And then if we select task, as I'm going to now, this task is automatically going to be added in to the existing group that sits underneath the destination planning summary. So we just need to give this task its own description, which I'm going to go with researching those travel dates and availabilities. And again, I'm going to give some dates here. So we're going to run from the 21st, and we're going to have that research happening until early December. Let's go with the 10th of December and click OK. Okay, so those tasks have been added. We've currently got my research holiday deals, which is sitting outside of those existing groups. And so what I'm going to want to do is I'm actually going to want to move research holiday deals to sit underneath the destination planning, because that's one of those activities that I need to work through to decide where it is that I'm going to want to go on holiday. So the easiest way to move this task to sit underneath the destination planning summary is just to click on it and then just to move it to sit underneath there as a child. So there we go. We can see it's now part of that group. Another way that we can move our tasks and milestones around is to use the indent or outdent options up in the top menu as well. Now, you may have noticed when you're adding tasks and milestones into the Gantt that initially they just go in the order that they've been added. So it may be that you want to change the sort order so that your tasks and milestones are presented to you in, for example, start to end date order. To do that, we simply need to click on the Actions button in the top right-hand corner, click on Sort, And then what we can do is select End Date and click OK. So now the tasks that are sitting underneath my destination planning summary task are in the correct order based on their end dates. So we can repeat these steps as needed, either adding independent tasks and milestones at the top there, and then using the drag and drop options to regroup them, or if we know where our tasks should sit underneath a summary task, then our best option is to click on that downward arrow and add from here. Once we're happy with our tasks and our milestones and how they're sitting underneath our summary tasks, because we are in the scheduling mode, in order to write these changes back to the project, we just need to go down to the Save button and save those changes back into the project. And there we go. We have our summary tasks and our individual tasks underneath. So once you've added all of your summary tasks and you've added your tasks and milestones underneath, you're then going to have a plan that looks similar to the one that I'm showing on my screen right now. Next step in the process is to add our dependency lines so we can see where there are dependent activities across our plan. If auto scheduling is switched on for your plan, then the dependency lines are used by the process to determine what happens to a dependent task or milestone when its predecessor is moved. If auto scheduling isn't switched on, then these lines are simply for illustrative purposes. So the easiest way to draw dependencies between your tasks and milestones is by going to the task, hovering, and then drawing and releasing where that dependency should be, and then repeating as needed until those dependencies are drawn. Now, in this example, the dependencies are finished to start, but you can, of course, draw them in other ways as well. Alternatively, another way to add your dependencies is by clicking on the downward arrow against a task or milestone and selecting dependencies from the menu. Here, you can then click on the Add button, and you can select from all of the tasks and milestones in your plan which one you would like to link to the task selected. So in this example, I'm going to go to the following task in my plan, which is research and book flights, and I'm going to select that. So I'm going to create a dependency between check passports and visa requirements and research and book flights. The type is set to finish to start, but we can select other dependency types from the list if appropriate. At this point, we also have the option to enter some lag. So as a reminder, lag is the specified time between when one task finishes and the next one can begin. So in this example, if I put in 2, what I'm specifying is that there must always be 2 days between when the check passports and visa requirements ends and the research and book flights activity begins. Any lag recorded here will always be respected by the auto scheduling process. When we're happy, we can just click on OK and then click on Cancel. We can repeat that until all of our dependency lines are illustrated in our plan. And so once we're finished and all of those dependency lines have been drawn on the Gantt, we're going to have a Gantt that looks similar to what we've got on the screen right now. For more information on dependencies and the different types of dependencies, please refer to the relevant Knowledge Hub articles. Baselining your plan. When you're happy with your plan, it's a good idea to baseline it. Baselining it will create a historical record of your plan at this moment in time. In the future, you can then choose to view your baseline plan and compare it to your current timeline. To baseline your plan, click on the downward arrow next to Add Milestone, and then select Baselines. To create a new baseline record, click on the Add button and give your baseline record a title. And then click OK. And just like that, we've created a baseline record of our plan. If we want to see it on the screen, overlaid, we simply need to click on the Show and click Close. You can now see your baseline dates illustrated by the dark grey along the bottom of the tasks and the white diamond on your milestones against your current task and milestone dates, which at the moment are the same as we've just baselined. However, if I was to change a date, so let's change the research and book flights, and let's say they've been pushed back. We're now not going to do those until after Christmas, so let's push those out into January. And then we just click OK. Now what you'll see is we have our new start and end date for that task in the green, and then underneath we have the baseline date. And we can see here that the grey bar ends, showing that the original date is now different from the current date. To make it a bit more clearer as well, it's always quite useful to click on the cog and enable your baseline start and end dates over here on the left-hand side. So if we now just expand out the view here, now what we can see is our current dates and our baseline dates. So if we look at the travel planning summary, we can now see that tasks and milestones are overdue based on the baselining dates. You can switch off the viewing at any point if you don't want to see your baseline records anymore. Just click on the downward arrow, baselines, and then just hide that and close it down. And you've got your normal set of tasks and milestones.